everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Week in 7 Questions. I am Eleftheria Katsi, Communications and Press Assistant at the Martin Center, and a warm welcome to our guest today, Daniel Fried, former US Ambassador to Poland and Distinguished Fellow at the Atlantic Council. Daniel, Poland is currently facing a major crisis on its borders. In the last few days, thousands of migrants have arrived at the border and are attempting to cross into the European Union. In many cases, Belarusian state forces were seen destroying Polish infrastructure or otherwise forcing migrants towards the Polish border. What is your general assessment of this situation?
I think you summed it up pretty well. This is not a migrant crisis. It is an act of aggression by Lukashenko, Belarus's dictator, attempting to gain leverage against the European Union and to put pressure on Poland, which is supported with Lithuania has supported Belarus's democratic opposition. Europe should show solidarity with Poland and push back on what Lukashenko is trying to do.
Belarus and its dictator Alexander Lukashenko have been under sanctions from the EU and the US due to election fraud, authoritarian tactics, and state-sponsored air piracy, among other things. Should the West take stronger action at this point? And what form would this action take? More sanctions? Are there other tools available?
The US and the European Union are already preparing additional sanctions against Lukashenko and his regime. This is a good step to take. Yeah, there are other steps we should take. Political solidarity is one. Lukashenko should not be able to divide Europe or divide the transatlantic community. And frankly, if the situation escalates, I'm not sure it will, Lukashenko may back down, but if it escalates, Poland is a NATO member, and NATO ought to be involved at some point.
Do you think the next German government will take a strong stance on Lukashenko and Vladimir Putin's actions? The Greens, kingmakers of the German elections, were very happy to see Nord Stream 2 certification in Germany delayed this week for administrative purposes.
The current German government and Chancellor Merkel personally seems to be involved in intense efforts to get Lukashenko to back down. I hope they succeed, and I hope that success does not include rewarding Lukashenko, either with money or recognition that he doesn't deserve. But it is true, as you say, that the next German government is apt to be, let us say, more consistent and send fewer mixed messages to Vladimir Putin. To get to a better relationship with Russia, we need to push back against Putin's aggression now. And I think the German Greens recognize this.
Lukashenko is inspiring himself from his backer Vladimir Putin, who also weaponized migrants on the Finnish border in a similar manner in 2016. What are the short-term measures the EU can take to protect itself from these threats? And in the long term?
I think that the EU and the United States need to take a hard look at their long-term Russia policy. The Biden administration has hoped for a stable and predictable relationship with Russia. That's their phrase, stable and predictable. But that's not what Putin seems to want. The United States and Europe need to work together to push back on Putin's aggression. We can cooperate where we think we can, but right now, Putin is acting directly and through his client Lukashenko in a way to create chaos and confrontation. And I take seriously the threat of armed action against Ukraine. We need to have a sustainable, strong Russia policy.
Are we at risk of seeing the increased weaponization of human beings, unless, of course, the EU and its allies take strong steps to prevent this?
Well, you're seeing the weaponization of human beings right now. That's what Lukashenko is doing. And we need to stop looking the other way or being understanding when Putin does or his allies do this kind of thing. It's good to try to cooperate with Russia, but Putin doesn't seem interested in cooperating with us, and we need to draw conclusions.
Lukashenko recently stated he's willing to negotiate with the EU to solve the border crisis. Do you believe he'll be negotiating in good faith? And is the solution to the current crisis diplomatic?
Well, certainly I hope for a diplomatic solution to the crisis rather than something that's worse. The question is not whether Lukashenko is negotiating in good faith. I think we can assume he isn't. But if he is willing to back down, if he realizes he has failed to divide Europe or intimidate Poland, then we have the chance of a serious dialogue, and let him pull back if he wants. But we shouldn't give him concessions that he doesn't deserve. We shouldn't recognize his fraudulent election. We shouldn't give him a break on the political prisoners and the torture that they are undergoing. We shouldn't forget that he grabbed out of the air a commercial aircraft and forced it to land to grab a dissident journalist. Let's remember all of this as we deal with Lukashenko. By all means, seek a diplomatic solution to the crisis, but not one that compromises our principles. And by the way, not one over the heads of the Poles and Lithuanians. They have to be involved.
Finally, what consequences do you see this border crisis having on the EU and its stability?
I think the EU has responded to this crisis with determination, with solidarity, and with great speed. I'm impressed by what von der Leyen has said and done. I think that Putin and Lukashenko expected the EU to be divided, to maybe isolate Poland. This didn't happen. The solidarity is impressive. Europe needs to show that it is strong, that it can act quickly and in solidarity, and so far, they're doing a good job.
Thank you, Daniel, and thank you all for watching. Stay tuned for next week's episode with another surprise guest.